Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is Take My Shot. Sorry, I almost said the Larry Show. I almost had a throwback moment there. It is Take My Shot. Let's get it popping this morning. I am officially going to make a declaration, or a rule more so, on this show, that I am never, ever again picking the who should be favorites for a game, right? Let's just get right into the NFL, shall we? Because yesterday, it's not even just been yesterday. It's been the entirety of the season this year. If someone is substantially better than another team, they are losing. Okay, and I think, and this is a good thing. Okay, because stick with me here. There's been always kind of in the NFL. There's been teams that are just substantially better, right? There's teams that are they're way better than the rest of the league, right? They're just better with talent, coaching staff. The organization's just better, right? At this day and age, the athletes in pro football are just so good that any team can beat any player, or any team can beat any team on any given day, right? The Houston Texans, that are 1-8, can beat the 8-2, 6 straight winning games Tennessee Titans. The Miami Dolphins, that are 2-7, can beat the Baltimore Ravens in primetime. The Jacksonville Jaguars can beat the Buffalo Bills. Like, the talent level is just so good in the league right now that I just think that a 16-0 team, I don't think will ever, or 17-0 now, that won't ever happen again in the league. The talent is just so good. And like I said, this is a good thing, because now any given day, any team can beat any team. And that makes it fun, right? That makes it to where, honestly, anything can happen on any given Sunday, and I love it, That just makes things so crazy. It makes me look kind of dumb, though, when I pick all my games wrong, because all the teams that should be winning aren't winning, And that just, it's blowing things wide open as far as this playoff thing is going to go. There is no, there is no, at this moment in time, right? Like, this week, I'm not going to be able to do my Laytham's List on Thursday through the radio station. Like I said, I'm going to probably still post a video on YouTube, so keep out for that. Also, remember that I won't be here on Thursday, of course, with it being Thanksgiving, and I will be out of town. It's just crazy because at the moment, right, with that loss to the Bills yesterday, the Patriots now own the AFC East, right? The Patriots, not without Tom Brady, right? Without Tom Brady, the Patriots now own the AFC East, okay? The Chiefs, with their win yesterday, they now are on top of the AFC West, right? They're going to be a game ahead, or it's like half a game, whatever, ahead of the Chargers now. Like, and with the Colts beating, who did the Colts play yesterday? Excuse me. With the Colts beating the Bills yesterday in dramatic fashion, I can't believe I just forgot about that game. They are now only 2 games back from the Titans, who lost to the Texans. This is, the whole situation in the AFC has been blown wide open. The AFC, don't even get me started with the AFC North. Every team in that division, unless they have had a bye or a tie, really, every team in the AFC North has 6 wins. The Ravens lead that division by 1 game. They're 7-3. The AFC West, every team in that division except for the Raiders, because they've had their bye, have 6 wins. Like, it's just, and then now the Bills and the Patriots are up there. It's just, I can't remember a time where, especially in the AFC, where a team wasn't the standalone best team, right? Because you couldn't honestly even say that the Titans were the best team, because, yeah, they're 8-3, but they've lost to the Jets and they've lost to the Texans. Like, that's just so, it just shows, like I said, any team on any given week. It's starting to honestly kind of be the same way in the NBA, where, like, even if you play a super young, raw team like a Rockets team, like even if a Rockets plays like a Brooklyn Nets or something like that, right? A team that's substantially better, they can kind of hang, and it's kind of crazy. It's just the next couple of years, the next 5 to 10, 10 to 15 years for pro sports in general is going to get pretty crazy because the talent level, you have 18 to 19-year-old kids walking into the NBA and dropping triple doubles, dropping 40 points. I mean, Jalen Green, his third game had 30, dropped 7 threes. Cade Cunningham last night recorded his first triple double. He's still 19 years old against the Lakers. Like, the talent is just it's incredible. Sports is going to change dramatically over the next couple of years because the talent is just gonna become so good in pro football and all professional sports, honestly. But yeah, like I said, the AFC is just so wide open now. It's just, I don't even at this point right now in time, I don't think that there is a clear favorite or a clear dominant team in the AFC. I don't think that there is. As of right now, right? The playoff picture is Titans the 1 seed, Ravens the 2 seed, Patriots the 3 seed, Chiefs the 4 seed, Chargers the 5 seed, Bengals the 6 seed, and the Bills the 7th seed. With the Bills' loss yesterday and the Patriots win on Thursday, the Bills dropped from the 3rd seed all the way down to the 7th seed. Dropped 5 spots. That's just crazy. And I mean, it's just insane. At this point in time, if you had to ask me, Laytham, who do you think is the most dominant team in the AFC? I couldn't even give you a solid answer, right? Like, the Titans can't win against bad teams, right? The Ravens struggle very bad on defense and in the secondary. The Patriots, I mean, it's not even crazy to say that the Patriots are probably the most together team right now in the AFC, right? They've got the defense. They've got the coaching staff. They've got a quarterback that can manage the game. They've got an established run game, right? They have experience, obviously, in that organization. It's not completely crazy to say right now the Patriots are that team right now. They are that team that is my favorite right now at this point in time. As crazy it is to say, right? Honestly, if I had, because like I said, I like to put everything into factor, right? Do the Patriots have the most explosive offense? No, obviously not. They never really have. Do they have the best defense? Probably in the AFC, right? Obviously, you could say, oh, how are you saying the Chiefs aren't better? I don't think the Chiefs have a better defense, right? The Chiefs don't have, even though the defense has played way better, right? Because we'll get to that, right? The Chiefs have played much better the last couple of weeks. But honestly, the Patriots are the only team I could solidly say, hey, this is probably the favorite in the AFC right now, right? Because early on, they struggled. Rookie quarterback, finding out the system, a lot of new players on the team. The Patriots went out and spent a whole lot of money in free agency for a whole lot of new guys, so still gelling a little bit. The Patriots this year are kind of looking like what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were a year ago, right? They've got a good quarterback. They bring in a new quarterback. Got a whole lot of young talent. They're just putting it together, right? They needed time to put it together, and that's what the Patriots are right now, right? But when you look over at the NFC, it's just a lot. It's a whole lot of a different story. You have everybody atop their divisions in the NFC, but it's by a lot for the most part, right? Like the Vikings are pretty substantially in front of everyone in their division. The Cardinals are now 2 games up on the Rams, and the Cowboys are 2 games up on, technically 3 games up on the Eagles, even with their loss yesterday. So the closest division here is the NFC South, but the Saints lost their game yesterday. So it's just, if you had to ask me my favorite from the NFC side of things, it'd probably have to be the Packers, but as far as the AFC goes, it has to probably be Patriots. If you had to ask me right now, Super Bowl matchup, Latham, we're at Week 11. Who do you think? I'd probably say Patriots Packers would probably have to be my Super Bowl matchup at this moment in time. But with that being said, let's talk about something that is so unfortunate in the football and in the NFL. Jonathan Taylor yesterday, if you live under a rock and you didn't watch anything that happened yesterday, Jonathan Taylor had 5 touchdowns yesterday against the Buffalo Bills defense and had just 208 yards from scrimmage. He's now over 1,000 yards rushing on the season. He leads the league in touchdowns by a gigantic margin now. It's just crazy. Since 2000, the NFL has only ever had 3 players not in the quarterback position win the league MVP, right? In 2012, which was the last time it happened, Adrian Peterson ran for 2,000 yards and he won league MVP. In 2006, Laytham Tomlinson had 2,000 yards from scrimmage, won league MVP. And sorry for not knowing this guy, but no, it's Marshall Faulk. Back in 2000, Marshall Faulk, with the greatest show on turf, he won league MVP. That's 3 running backs in the last 21 years have won league MVP. 17 quarterbacks, 3 running backs. And if there ever was a year for a non-quarterback to win league MVP, it'd have to be this year. It has to be, because in years past that I can remember off the top of my head, right? Every year to this point, there was a clear dominant quarterback in the league, right? A year ago, Aaron Rodgers was clearly dominating the league, right? So he was clearly going to win MVP that year. 2 years ago, Lamar Jackson was clearly going to win MVP. He was tearing up the league. The year before that, Patrick Mahomes, he was tearing up the league. He was obviously going to win league MVP. And then even before before Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, he was tearing up the league and the Patriots were winning a whole lot of games. He was obviously going to win league MVP. If you ask me right now who is dominating at the quarterback position, really no one. Quite honestly, notebody. There isn't a quarterback right now that's playing in the league that is substantially better than every other offensive player in the league. There just isn't. Early on it was, talks of Kyler, it was Matthew Stafford, it was kind of Tom Brady. Tom Brady's kind of had a rough stretch. He's thrown 4 picks the last couple of games. Matthew Stafford has lost back-to-back games here. Kyler Murray hasn't played in almost a month. I think just with that alone, right, because Kyler Murray is a favorite, right, coming in up to this point. Kyler Murray hasn't played in almost a month. I think with that alone, Kyler Murray can't win MVP now. He hasn't played in a month, almost, too. I don't think Kyler Murray's out of it right now. Even if Arizona Cardinals went 15-3, he can't win it, or 15-2. He's missed too much time now at this point. The stats just wouldn't be able to back it up. Now, call me crazy, but with no substantial dominance from somebody from the quarterback position, this would have to be the year that maybe Trevon Diggs, with 8 picks in 11 weeks, you maybe think about giving him MVP votes. Jonathan Taylor is miles above the rest of the field in touchdowns, scrimmage yards, rushing yards. He's now ties Laytham Tomlinson, a former league MVP at running back, in 8 straight games of 100-plus scrimmage yards and a rushing touchdown. That's historic Hall of Fame numbers from Jonathan Taylor. Myles Garrett is on pace to have an NFL record in sacks. If there ever was a year for someone not named a quarterback to win MVP, it has to be this year. And I feel, and it's kind of a bummer because if Derrick Henry hadn't gone down, right, Derrick Henry was on pace to probably break the all-time rushing yardage record, getting that extra game, right? And it had to be Derrick Henry. But now it has to now Jonathan Taylor is going to take the reins as probably being the number one back in the league right now. It has to. I think that it should at least be thought about, right? Like, I honestly don't think a quarterback has been dominant enough, right, up to this point in the season. I really hope that it's at least thought about, right? Because Jonathan Taylor is putting up very impressive numbers, but I wish I could have a say in that for sure, because I don't think that just because you're a quarterback that it should automatically be a quarterback's award, and it should just straight go to a quarterback. But with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about yesterday. A couple more things from yesterday, a little bit. Probably the game of the day yesterday, Packers versus the Vikings. What a shootout there in the NFC North divisional matchup. Kirk Cousins played about as flawless as you could probably play. 3 touchdowns, no picks, only 9 incompletions. And Aaron Rodgers played about as flawless as he could play. He had 4 touchdowns, 385 yards, only 10 incompletions. Both teams played fantastic. Just an incredible game. Ended up being 31-34. The Vikings kicker, I don't know his name, hit a game winner with no time left on the clock. Impressive win there. But so here's the Vikings. We talked about this last week. The Vikings are right there. The Vikings have lost in overtime by a game-winning field goal to the Ravens, lost a very close game versus the Cowboys, lost on a game-winning field goal versus the Panthers, lost on a game-winning field goal to the Cardinals, lost on a game-winning field goal to the Bengals, and lost a shootout that they almost had versus the Browns. That was that 14-7 game. The Vikings have been right there. If these things have gone the other way, they're 5-5 right now, right? If these things had gone the other way, they'd have one win here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They'd be 8-2 right now had those games gone the other way, right? They hadn't lost to those game-winning field goals. The Vikings, they're right there. They're like I've been saying, they're a good team. They're a playoff team. They've just been falling short. And yesterday, they finally had the chance at the game-winning field goal. They finally had the chance to get that last drive. It was kind of a mixture of everything yesterday for the Vikings. The Vikings kind of, at least offensively, when I talk about teams and as far as like the level I like to have them on, you have to have a great defense, right? You have to have a great secondary that can not necessarily contain, but can at least manage an elite passer, right, from another team. You have to have an established run game, and you have to be able to get the ball down the field for big plays through the air. Those are 3 big things I look for when I'm saying, is this team, a contender or a team that's significantly better than the rest, right? The Vikings have a great secondary. The Vikings have an established run game with Dalvin Cook, and Kirk Cousins is creeping his way into a top quarterback in this league, right? He had a flawless game yesterday. Only 9 incompletions, 3 touchdowns, and drove the Vikings down the field to get the game-winning field goal, right? The Vikings, they're just right there, right? They've been so close at this point. They're 5-5 now, so they're gonna be just outside of the playoff race. But they're gonna finish the year. Let's see. Let me pull up their schedule real quick. Let's see what they finished this year. So, like I said, they're 5-5 at this point. They got the 49ers for a tough matchup next week. Then they go Lions, Steelers, Bears, Rams, Packers, Bears. So, realistically, 1, 2, 3, 4. A little bit of a tough kind of halfway schedule here for them. They'll have a tough matchup versus the Packers again, tough matchup versus the Rams, maybe a tough matchup versus the 49ers and the Steelers. The Packers might end up going 8-8, or excuse me, 8-9, 9-8, that middle ground, and just barely sneak in. But here's the thing with the Vikings: they're that team that you don't want to play, right? For example, when I had thought that the Kansas City Chiefs maybe not make were not going to make a playoff push, or they were going to be kind of that 7-6 seed laying around there, I was saying you don't want to play the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs, right? Because if they barely sneak in, like I thought they were going to, they were going to be scary, right? They're not the team that you want to play as a number 1 seed or a number 2 seed. That was not the team that you wanted to play as your first matchup in the playoffs, right? The Vikings might be that team that you don't want to play come playoff time because they've just been right there. The Minnesota Vikings have been, and you got to give them credit. They finally were able to pull out yesterday in that impressive win over the Packers. Now, the Steelers and the Chargers were in a shootout yesterday as well on Sunday Night Football. This was a crazy game. That was probably the best I've seen the Pittsburgh Steelers offense in quite some time. And I watch, obviously, the Ravens play the Steelers 2 times a year, so they're in the NFC North or the AFC North. So I watched the Steelers been watching them for years. So yesterday, that was the best they've looked in quite some time. Not as much. This is what I've been saying about the Steelers, right? Is that their defense was their strength, and their downfall was going to be their offense, right? Because you can't just have a great defense in this league and not have any offense. You got to have offense. You got to have offense in this league. And the Steelers yesterday, for the first time, I thought really Ben Roethlisberger wasn't just dumping it down. He wasn't just looking short. He wasn't just hitting his safety valves. I mean, Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool both almost had 100 yards receiving, right? They were getting it down the field. He was getting it out there, spreading the ball around a lot. He had 3 touchdowns to 3 separate receivers, and they were in a shootout versus a good Chargers team, right? Justin Herbert has been playing fantastic, right? He was my pick for league MVP this year. He had an insane game yesterday. He had 382 yards through the air, 3 touchdowns through a bad pick. Then he had 90 yards rushing from Justin Herbert. He'll never do that again, probably. Never do that again. But he had 90 yards rushing yesterday to Justin Herbert for over 450 yards of total offense for Justin Herbert. A hellacious performance yesterday for Justin Herbert. Props has to go to the Steelers, though. They didn't have a lot of... T.J. Watt was out. Minka Fitzpatrick was out. And they had one other starter that was out. I think in the secondary. Was it DJ Hayden? I think it was DJ Hayden. He was out, too. Okay, so they had 3 really big pieces to their defense were out. Obviously, T.J. Watt is a gigantic loss on the front. So they had to try to replace T.J. Watt, which is hard to do in itself. Minka Fitzpatrick, you have to replace probably up there's the top 3, top 5 safety in the league, and then your starting corner. It's never a good thing when you lose your starting corner. So they had to go and play in Los Angeles an explosive offense like the Chargers without three big contributors on the defensive side of the ball for the Steelers. So you have to give them credit, right? They were able to keep it a game even without having their those key guys on defense. And the Chargers, they're kind of back in the mix again now. They're going to be 6-4. Just a great performance from Justin Herbert itself. They can't give up. The Steelers had 27 points in the fourth quarter. They scored a bunch right there at the end to make it a game again. But like I said, that shows that the Pittsburgh Steelers offense has gigantic potential. It's going to be really interesting to see what Pittsburgh does in the offseason. We're going to play a game towards the end of the session here. I'm going to be calling it just, who's going to bring their quarterback back next year, right? And that's a team that we're going to definitely have a little bit of a conversation about. Let's see. Seattle Seahawks. I don't think in my time watching football that I can remember a year when the Seattle Seahawks did not make the playoffs. Russell Wilson. Excuse me, give me just a second. I'm going to pull it up just to see, just because I'm curious. Russell Wilson, it's not even, I wouldn't even put it on Russell Wilson necessarily because Russell Wilson hasn't played horrible. It's just, I don't think all in all together, the Seattle Seahawks just aren't really that team this year. So I'm looking here at their past history. So they've made the playoffs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Oh, excuse me. Let me recap that again. Oh, so the last time they missed the playoffs was in 2017, right? So under Russell Wilson, they just haven't made the playoffs just 3 times. 2017 was the last time they missed it, and they just barely missed it. They were 9-7 that year. Just the team, I think all in all, the Seattle Seahawks, they need a rebuild. They need to reset that. They need to hit the reset button on that organization. There's a lot of guys that have been there for a really long time. They're kind of in a similar situation. I wouldn't compare that. They've got a lot of guys on that team. It's probably time to move on from, right? They've got to bring in some youth to that team, and it's not coming anytime soon because they brought in Jamal Adams and they traded all their future assets for Jamal Adams. So it's going to be a tough situation for Seattle. Of course, there's talks of Russell Wilson maybe not even coming back next year, which is, if he asked me, I don't think that Russell Wilson should come back. I think that he should try to look to go to a new team, even though he's all that in a bag of chips about staying in Seattle. I think it should probably be a time where he moves on to a new team. There's a lot of teams that could really use a quarterback like Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson needs a team that's not the Seattle Seahawks. It's just, last week they got shut out versus the Packers. They were kind of in this game versus the Cardinals, but like I said, for the first time in a while, the Seahawks defense is kind of what their weakness is. Their defense their defense gave up 328 yards to a backup quarterback in Colt McCoy, right? No disrespect to Colt McCoy, but he's nothing special, right? He's a backup quarterback for a reason. But even at that, Russell Wilson threw for 207 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. This is not a spectacular performance from him either. It's just weird to see Russell Wilson not play well. They're going to be 3-7 now, so they're probably out of the playoff mix for sure. It's just so weird for Russell Wilson to just, it almost feels like he's just not in his element. It's just the offense is just not scheming well right now, and they don't have an established run game. They don't have the greatest offensive line, and their defense is struggling. They have the weapons offensively through the air, I think, right? They have Tyler Lockett, Gerald Everett, DK Metcalf. They kind of have the weapons offensively. They kind of have a revolving door in the backfield. They handed it to 4 different running backs yesterday. It's just tough situation in Seattle for sure. Other kind of headlines, let's talk about it. Kansas City Chiefs, I don't want to officially say are back yet, right? And I know people are going to be like, how can you say the Chiefs aren't back yet? Hear me out, right? I kind of vouched for the Chiefs just a little bit, right, when they were off to their bad start, okay? Because they started off the regular season against 1, 2, 3, 4. They started at 5. So they started out the regular season with their first couple of games. Their first 8 games were against 5 playoff teams from a year ago, right? So they barely were able to beat the Browns. They lost to the Ravens, lost to the Bills, lost to the Titans, and they were able to beat the Packers, right? I still don't think, here's why I don't think they're back yet, or they're there, right? Or they're not my top team in the AFC. Yes, you were able to beat Dallas, right? Dallas, my knock on Dallas was that what were they going to do when it mattered, right? Kind of like the same situation with Matthew Stafford over in LA. Sure, the Dallas Cowboys are 7-3 to this point, right? They're going to make the playoffs. They're going to win their division. Their division isn't quite as good as they are. But if you remember a couple of years ago with Dak, they went 13-3 and then got blown out in the first round of the playoffs, right? They had a horrible game. The Cowboys haven't been able to make the playoff step, haven't been able to take the step playoff-wise, right? The game yesterday versus Kansas City was just too big, right? It was too big of a moment for the Cowboys, I think. The Kansas City Chiefs, been there, done that, played big games, won Super Bowls, been to the Super Bowl the last 2 years. They know how to win big games, right? They know how to go in a late game of the week. They know how to beat a 7-3 Cowboys in dominant fashion, right? They know how to do that, right? The Kansas City Chiefs still have the potential, right? They're still there, but they're just not the teams that they've been in the last couple of years. The moment was too big for the Dallas Cowboys yesterday. And the Chiefs knew how to handle that big moment. So I don't think the Chiefs are back, per se, but their schedule gets a whole lot easier towards the end of the stretch here, right? They're going to go Denver, Raiders, tough matchup versus Chargers, could be a tough matchup versus Steelers, Bengals, Broncos. They're going to make the playoffs. They're probably going to win the division now, unless the Chargers get their act together and win their last couple of games. And I don't think they're the teams that they've been of past, okay? Like I've been saying at the beginning of the show, there's not a dominant team in the AFC. So I wouldn't even say if the Chiefs say they just lose to the Chargers and maybe drop that game to the Steelers, so they finish the season 4-2 this last 6 weeks. I wouldn't even say that they're my favorites in the AFC. I'd still probably take one or two teams over the Chiefs. But like I said, they have been in the moment. They know how to win big games. They're going to be a scary team to finish, right? And the chances that the Chiefs, so if the Chiefs were able to win the division, they'd play a team that's looking in, right? So they'd probably play a Chargers, right? That's a realistic first round matchup. Say the Chargers win the division, they probably play the Chiefs first round, or vice versa, right? The Chiefs win the division, they play the Chargers first round. I don't know. They're not quite there yet for me, right? Impressive win over the Chiefs, over the Cowboys. They're super lucky that Aaron Rodgers didn't play in that game versus the Packers, because if they would have dropped that game, it would have been a little bit different situation right now. But they won it, and it is what it is. I just don't think they're there yet. Okay, they're this close. But they're not what they've been years past. Okay, but kudos to the Chiefs. Got a big win yesterday over the Dallas Cowboys. The moment was just too much for the Dallas Cowboys yesterday. All right, Ravens. I guess we can talk about it. Lamar Jackson was sick all week, not COVID related, just regular illness. Didn't play all week. Didn't practice all week. So Snoop got the call up. That's his nickname that the team calls him all the time. Ugly game, if I do say so myself. Tyler Huntley, sorry if you didn't know, if you wanted to give him a look up or anything. Tyler Huntley is the backup quarterback for the Ravens. They call him Snoop. Not a horrible performance from him. They have him strictly for the fact that he's Lamar Jackson-esque, right? And they want to make sure that if something does happen to Lamar Jackson like yesterday, you still have the same kind of ability of quarterback to come in and run the offense, right? You can't have Lamar Jackson get injured and then, say Mitch Trubisky was the backup quarterback or something. They can't have a pocket passer coming in and running the offense, right? So Tyler Huntley is the backup quarterback to Lamar Jackson. Very Lamar Jackson-esque. Runs the ball pretty well. He had 40 yards rushing yesterday. It was just a weird game, all in all, though, together yesterday. Tyler Huntley threw 36 passes, but he only had 219 yards. The Ravens yesterday had a drive that lasted 8 minutes, and they moved a total of 16 yards. It just was a weird. You could tell that the Ravens, obviously, they were just trying to get out of this one, right? They didn't feel. Obviously, Lamar. I think if this was a different opponent, say this was a divisional matchup, or this was a game against a Bills or something, for example, they would have played Lamar. I think Lamar would have tried to just play the game, but it was Chicago. The Ravens felt probably that they could go into Chicago and beat the Bears even with Tyler Huntley, and that's exactly what they did. Almost let it slip though. It was I was nervous all game because, like I said, the offense just wasn't moving down the field much. It was just a weird. We were holding the ball, like we dominated time of possession yesterday, just not moving the ball down the field. It was just a weird scenario. Nonetheless, they were able to get the win yesterday, 16-13. Almost happened to us again, where a backup quarterback came in and almost won the game, or almost beat us again. Andy Dalton, again, like I said, I've been a Ravens fan my whole life. Andy Dalton has done some pretty heartbreaking things to my Ravens, and almost did it yesterday. Again, with just bad defense from the Ravens. It's fourth. Was it fourth down? I'm pretty sure it was fourth and 11, or fourth and long yardage. Okay, and the Ravens dial up an all-out blitz, 4th and 11, and the Bears are midfield, a minute 40 left on the clock. They dial up an 8-man blitz. They put 3 receivers in route, and West Street just got burnt. Darnell Mooney just did a simple out and up, an out and up route, and he just got cooked. And the Bears scored on 4th and 11 from right around midfield. It was just, I was watching it live, right, and I saw Andy Dalton load up, and I went, oh, please no, because I saw that they sent the house. I was like, why did we send the house on fourth and a mile, basically, for the game? I was like, why would we do that? And sure enough, we did, and it almost cost us the game. But a great game from Tyler Huntley down the stretch. He was able to connect with Sammy Watkins right at the end of the game. They sent an all-out blitz, and they had a miscue in their secondary in the coverage, and they were able to win. That one late on a big rush, or on a rushing touchdown from Devontae Freeman with about 20 seconds left. I still don't like the Ravens. I don't like how they stack up against other teams. Like I said, just most likely their path's going to have to go through Josh Allen. They're going to have to go through Justin Herbert. They're going to have to go through Mahomes. That's just too much firepower. I just don't think the Ravens' defense there's just too much holes in the secondary. The secondary is just not talented enough. It's just going to be a tough go for the Ravens, for them to try to keep up with other teams. He's got to stay healthy, for sure. And the Ravens, they got back to Nick Boyle. Actually was back yesterday too. He had a pretty good game. We listened to Marlon Humphrey's interview last week on how he felt about the game last week and that loss to the Dolphins. Let's go ahead and listen again into what Marlon Humphrey had to say. Because like I said, I like to listen to what the defense has to say right now, because obviously the offense isn't a problem. But here's what Marlon Humphrey had to say about the game yesterday.
What do you think this win says about this team to, all the injuries that it has now without Lamar Jackson and still be able?
I think it means a lot. We're good, and then you see him on the plane curled up in a ball, and I'm like, I look over, I'm like, I don't think this guy's gonna be able to play. So, yeah, it was just crazy. you're optimistic that that this guy can play. It was a lot of game time decisions, but I think it just says a lot. A lot of times when you think of the Baltimore Ravens, you think of Lamar Jackson because he's done so much for us. He's such a great player, such a great guy. But man, it was really special to see Snoop step up. A couple guys in defense step up. Just all around, it seems like we didn't really flinch, and you just look at even the speech Harbs gave us last night. It was short and sweet, but the thing he said, let's get a pump block tomorrow. We got a pump block. Let's do this. We got this, and it was all around effort from the coaches to the players, and everybody just stepped up. We didn't know who was going to be out there, but we all just stepped up.
What was it like to watch that last drive more? I'm sure you guys were pretty down after giving up a touchdown. But to see, the offense go down there as quickly as they did and get that score, what was that like from the sideline?
It was surreal. We definitely didn't want to give up that touchdown. We wanted to end it on defense. But to watch Snoop, kind of march down the field, it was special. So the offense really, did their thing today, and that last minute, that last drive was crazy. It'll be I always see those stats on primetime games. Like this guy's had this many game-winning drives, and it's pretty special for Snoop to get one in his first game. Sorry.
You guys are dominating in quarterback for much of the first half of the game, like you were with Justin Fields, and then a veteran backup, like Andy Dalton comes in, especially you guys have history with the Ravens. Do you kind of not like to see that replacement happen because it can give them momentum boost? Like, what was running through your head when he came in?
We got a lot of history with Andy Dalton. It's crazy you say that. I was kind of thinking the same thing. I was like, it's the second game in a row that we're killing a team, and then they put in this guy, and it really changes the game a little bit. So for us, we just got to, man, it doesn't matter who's back there. We can't really change what we're doing. I think this will be a really good lesson because I'm not sure how many yards they had in the first half when Justin Fields was in, but it definitely changed a little bit there. We kind of got on our heels for that one drive or two, and so we just got to just continue to lock in, no matter who's the quarterback, no matter who's the running back, wide receiver, and just play Ravens defense. I think that's the biggest thing. But there's definitely something that I think we'll look at a little bit more, just for everybody to be like, man, it doesn't matter who's there. Let's just play ball.
This is one of the more crazy weeks of your career in terms of you guys practicing, and all of a sudden they either get hurt in practice or they go out. And was it, for you, was it challenging, mentally and preparation wise for the game?
It actually, I hate to say it, but there's been so much crazy happening this year. Nothing's really too crazy. But this week actually was strange. One of the guys that got hurt, I was standing right next to him, and he just got hurt. Literally seemed like out of nowhere. One guy, didn't know if he was gonna, play or not. Couldn't really practice, and then, of course, I already told you about Lamar. He was, the plane lands. You don't even know the plane landed. He was so sick at the time. And then all these game time decisions ended up not going in our favor. So it was definitely weird. I think it was definitely tough, but I thought once we got through pregame, everybody kind of knew, hey, this is what we got. This is all we need. And we went from there.
All right. Thank you, guys. Hey, thank you.
So that's what Marlon Humphrey had to say about the situation yesterday that went down. As you can see, it's just been such a weird year for the Ravens. Have the Ravens not lost as much as they had lost up to this point, I really think that the Ravens would probably be the favorite in the AFC, right? If they had their backfield, if they had the help of Marlon Humphrey and stuff in that secondary, I think they'd have a real shot. And another weakness I'd have to say for the Ravens is their offensive line. Their offensive line is really struggling. Snoop got sacked 5 or 6 times yesterday. What's his face? Robert Quinn had 3.5 sacks. It's just, the offensive line is pretty an important position too, and that they were struggling as well. But off of the Ravens soapbox, last kind of game I wanted to talk about, or 2 more things to talk about here, and then we'll talk about that. We'll do that little quarterback game. Bad game from Josh Allen. Josh Allen, it was bad reads from Josh Allen. Threw 2 picks yesterday. Horrible, 21 from 35 completion percentage. He just got dominated yesterday. Again, 2 weeks ago, he had a really bad performance. Against Jacksonville, he had a really bad performance. I don't even know what to say it is, because yesterday, obviously, Jonathan Taylor just had an historic performance, but that's their defensive side of things. The offense just never got even going. The Colts got up 14-0 right out the gate on them like it was nothing, right? And the offense for the Bills just never really got it going either. The Bills have been really inconsistent as well to me this year. If you remember a couple of weeks ago when we had Garrett McGee on the show, he had said he felt that the Bills were the most overhyped team in the league. He felt that they hadn't played anybody substantial enough to prove to him that they were a good team, right? And he's probably correct. They had played a lot of lower level teams this year. They were beating them by substantial amounts, but man, they were losing to. They kind of lost a lot of games that they probably shouldn't have lost as well. I mean, it doesn't get very much easier for the Bills here. They'll have a tough game on Thanksgiving night. They have they have the Saints. Then they got a big matchup on Monday Night Football versus the Patriots. That's going to be a gigantic game. That's going to be a huge game. Then it doesn't get easier. Then they got Tampa. Then they got Carolina, which is much better with Cam Newton. Then they got the Patriots again. So they've got a little bit of a gauntlet the next month or so, for the Bills. So the Bills might mess around and not even win the division this year. Bad performance from Josh Allen yesterday. He threw a lot of bad picks. He was throwing up passes, and I was just like, Josh, what was that? It was just like I've been saying. I didn't feel that the run game really got going. Has never really been able to get going for the for the Bills. Currently at the moment though, I was just curious, so I gave it a look up. The Vegas odds for league MVP right now, and it's close. The numbers are really close, but they've got Buffalo, they've got Josh Allen at the number 1 spot for the favorite to win MVP. It goes Josh Allen, Tom Brady, Dak Prescott, Matthew Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson. It's quite interesting that Josh Allen is who they're gonna throw in there as a favorite right now. Like I said, Tom Brady, this side of having a bad couple of last weeks, I would say that Tom Brady would probably have to be, if I had to pick a quarterback, he'd be my pick for MVP. A little bit off topic there, but I thought I'd give that a quick look up real quick. Baker Mayfield. We'll segue this into my quarterback game. Baker Mayfield yesterday almost lost to Tim Boyle and the Detroit Lions, and he played just a bad game. It was a bad game from him. He had 176 yards passing on 29 pass attempts, a touchdown and 2 picks. Like, golly, man. And they were both bad picks. Sometimes picks, they're just like tip balls or whatever. Yesterday, those were bad picks by Baker Mayfield. Bad picks. Like, way overthrew. One in particular, I remember he just way overthrew it. That's going to segue into, I do not think that the Cleveland Browns should bring back Baker Mayfield next year. I think that the Cleveland Browns should go big time on the market. They need to go try to pick up Russell Wilson. They need to go try to pick up Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson. They need to go get somebody, right? I think it's time to move on from Baker Mayfield. He did great things for the franchise, right? He did great things for the organization. But it's time to move on. He's not anything special. The Cleveland Browns will not be anything special as long as they keep Baker Mayfield at quarterback, right? And I think the organization itself knew that. The organization knows that. That's why they haven't given him the contract, right? They said, we could give you a contract right now, but we still don't really feel confident, and that's why. That really is why. if they felt confident in what Baker did last year, they would have gave him the contract, right? But they didn't get caught up in the moment, which is crazy for the Browns organization to say that they probably made a smart decision, within the organization, because they didn't just jump the gun and said, oh, Baker took us to the playoffs for the first time in a couple of years. Let's sign him to the big deal. No, he's got to prove that he can do it over and over and over again. Even Mark Sanchez has made it to the AFC Championship game. Like, bad quarterbacks can sometimes win a couple of games, right? They need to open up the market, open up their wallets for a big market quarterback, and that's what they're probably saving that money for. That's why they didn't sign Baker again. Green Bay, I think, has a perfect chance this year to look just to have Jordan Love maybe be the future. This year is going to be quite interesting, I think, honestly. Teams in the later rounds have a chance to get a quarterback. There is no dominant there's no dominant quarterback in this draft, okay? I'll give it a quick search real quick. But I don't even know who they say is the highest. Let's see. Let's go. We'll do Pro Football Focus's mock draft, okay? So Pro Football, their mock draft has, let's see, they have the first quarterback coming off the board all the way at, like I said, it's not a quarterback draft class like it's been the last couple of years. Okay, so they have the very first quarterback coming off the board in Pro Football Focus's mock draft of the Washington football team taking Sam Howell from North Carolina. Okay, so there's Sam Howell. Then the next one that they have is the Carolina Panthers taking Matt Carroll from Ole Miss. Again, that's probably not what they're going to do. Cam's probably the answer there. They have the Denver Broncos taking Malik Willis from Liberty. Let's see. Keep going down the list a little bit here. So that's 3 quarterbacks in the first round that are kind of mid to late first round. Let's see here. Carson Strong of Nevada to the New Orleans Saints with the 19th pick. Okay, 4 quarterbacks late to mid first round. And I'll finish out right here. And that's going to be it. So 4 quarterbacks late to mid first round. Carson Strong at 19 to the Saints is the farthest quarterback out, right? This could be a year where Green Bay could trade up to get one of these guys, right? There's no dominant quarterback like there's been the last couple of years in the draft, okay? Very easily, Sam Howell, Carson Strong, Malik Willis, and the kid from Ole Miss, they all 4 could easily slip in the draft, right? They're not dominant quarterbacks. They're not something, obviously they're not anything special that's making these quarterbacks open their eyes these organizations open their eyes or anything. So these quarterbacks could easily fall into the later parts of the draft. And why not Green Bay take a shot on Malik Willis? Why not Green Bay take a shot on Carson Strong? These guys. So I think Green Bay is a team that should open up the door for Jordan Love, and once they move on from Aaron Rodgers. But I think this is the year for them to take a move at drafting another quarterback, I think. And it's a late enough draft that they can do it, right? New England's going to be good with Mac Jones for a very long time. Tampa Bay, they're going to be fine with Tom Brady. He's going to play for another 15 years. Kansas City's obviously going to be fine with Patrick Mahomes. Arizona's going to be fine with Kyler Murray. The Raiders is an interesting one. I don't think that the Raiders should move on from Derek Carr, but I think Derek Carr should move on from the Raiders. I think he needs to get out of it. He needs to go to an organization that has a little bit more function, right? Even if he moved, as crazy as it sounds, to a team like the Denver Broncos, right? The Broncos aren't a great team, right? But they have potential, and they're run good, right, by John Elway. Philadelphia, I think Jalen Hurts is coming to his own. They're going to be fine over there with Jalen Hurts at quarterback. San Francisco. They probably move on from Jimmy Garoppolo this year, right? They probably give the reins to Trey Lance next year. Where do we see Jimmy Garoppolo maybe landing? right? Jimmy Garoppolo maybe landing with a Seattle. Jimmy Garoppolo maybe landing with Washington, Miami. Teams that I think Jimmy Garoppolo has a chance to go to, where he'd probably be a pretty good fit, right? So I think San Francisco moves on from Jimmy Garoppolo. They should probably go with Trey Lance. I think Seattle should probably move on from Russell Wilson, right? They're 3-7 to this point. At this point this year, that's probably right around a lottery pick, right? Again, that's a team. Malik Willis, right? Like kind of an improvising type quarterback that has a lot of talent and the ability to be taught, right? So Malik Willis, that's a quarterback that the Seattle Seahawks could probably take there, right? Carolina, I think they're going to be fine with Cam Newton. I think he rejuvenates the organization. Cleveland, so I think Cleveland has the chance. They need to be the team that makes the big free agency move. They're going to have the money to do it. They need to go out and do it. I would personally probably like to see, if I had to pick between the three, right, the Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, and Deshaun Watson, I'd probably like to see Aaron Rodgers here the most. I think Aaron Rodgers fit in that offense pretty well, and that if he had a defense like that, it'd be a pretty scary sight. Minnesota, like I said, Kirk Cousins has been playing great. They have no reason to think that Kirk Cousins isn't the answer. Baltimore Ravens, they're going to obviously stick with Lamar Jackson. Los Angeles Rams, we'll see how it goes with Matthew Stafford this year as far as the playoffs and stuff like that, but they're probably going to stick with Matthew Stafford. Josh Allen's the answer for Buffalo. Man, Detroit. I don't think the answer is a quarterback, right? Jared Goff isn't a bad quarterback. I've never thought, he's nothing spectacular, right? But he's a manager, right? And I've never thought that you can't ever blame a quarterback of the Lions, right? Matthew Stafford was just there for, his entire career, never did anything special. Comes to the Rams, he's a really good quarterback, right? It's just the organization itself. It's a dead zone, right? No quarterback has ever, in their history of the franchise, been able to go in there and succeed. I don't think any quarterback in this draft is the answer. I mean, heck, they should probably just stick with Jared Goff, and maybe they draft a quarterback, but probably should just try to keep, developing other positions and building around the quarterback and just wait for a spectacular quarterback to come out of the draft. Like a C.J. Stroud or something, right? Bryce Young. Washington football team is probably a team that's going to pick a quarterback, right? They should probably take like a Sam Howell or Carson Strong. So they'll probably be looking for a rookie quarterback. Denver, I think, is the perfect fit for Deshaun Watson. Great. Denver should probably be on the market for a quarterback like that. I'll try to rip through these last couple of teams here. Dolphins, they should probably move off of Tua, but let's kind of see how he finishes out the year. He's playing well the last couple of weeks. Giants, Daniel Jones, they're not going to move off of him, but they probably should. Again, it's just not a great rookie class coming up for quarterbacks, but I think they probably stick with Daniel Jones. The New Orleans Saints are probably going to pick up a quarterback in the draft, either Carson Strong or one of them boys. Chicago Bears got their quarterback of the future with Justin Fields. Tennessee Titans, Ryan Tannehill is playing really great. I don't think that they should move off of him. Justin Herbert is going to be a generational talent. Carson Wentz, I think, is for at least next year, is probably going to stay there at quarterback. The quarterback controversy in New York gets even bigger as Joe Flacco has a great game there for the Jets. They're obviously not going to be making any moves at the quarterback position. They have a couple of guys in that room that have made some pretty impressive performances. The Falcons, this is definitely a year that they probably should move off of Matt Ryan. Look to maybe get a guy like Sam Howell. I think that's a perfect fit for that organization. Joe Burrow is going to be in in Cincinnati. Jacksonville will be Trey Lance. The Houston Texans need to definitely take a quarterback in the draft. Maybe a Carson Strong would fit best there. Dallas Cowboys will obviously have Dak Prescott, and the Pittsburgh Steelers are a team that definitely needs to draft a quarterback. That probably should be that Ole Miss kid. All right, just a quick game. I probably had to rip through it a little bit faster than I wanted to right there, but thank you guys for listening to the show today. Again, no show on Thursday. I'll be out of town. Of course, with it being Thanksgiving and stuff, but I'll still try to post a YouTube video, I think, on Thanksgiving, try to preview a couple of those games. Thanks for listening to the show today, though, guys. You have been listening to Take My Shot. This is Laytham Goes. You've been listening to KBCU 88.1 FM, broadcasting from Newton, Kansas at the campus of Bethel College.